Hey everybody, welcome back. If you're new here, hi, I'm Mercury. So as you can see, that scarf that I was working on my cozy winter day at home, I finished it. More like I ran out of yarn, so it's as done as it can be. And I want to be able to give it to my coworker tomorrow, but it needs some blocking. And if you're not familiar with what blocking is, it's a technique used for knitting and crocheting that when you're finished with your project, it helps give it its form and keeps it in place. So you'll notice it kind of curls in, right? These edges are kind of rolling and curling in, right? It's kind of like a tube instead of like a flat scarf. So I need to block it. Now, in the past, the way that I've done blocking is I use what's called a blocking board. And for me, a blocking board, literally, it's a thumbtack board, like a push pin board. And I would take my project and I would moisten it and I would use push pins and pin it in place and let it dry on the board. But because this is so long and my blocking board is only like, I used it for granny squares, so it's small. I'd have to do this in sections and it would take me a really long time to do. So I looked up to see if there's other techniques for blocking that I could try. And I found out there's a way to do blocking with an iron. So I'm going to test this out. So this is an experiment. This is my first time doing iron blocking, and we're going to give it a try. So what the directions basically said was that you use an iron on a medium setting, and then you take a damp towel or cloth and you put that on top. So instead of wetting the project, you wet the damp towel or cloth, or you make the towel or cloth damp, right? And you put that on top. So you have it sandwiched between whatever you're ironing on and the damp towel on top. And then you iron that damp towel and the steam will set it in place. So you have to make sure it's positioned correctly also. So a little bit of nuance to it. So I'm gonna give it a try. Let me go set up my iron, let it get hot, and I'll be right back. So I do not have an ironing board. I make do with what I got, and what I got is a floor and a towel. So I'm gonna lay the towel out, gonna position the scarf on the towel, and then put the damp cloth on top of it. Because I wanna make sure that this side is like unrolled like that, right? Putting that like that. And then I made this washcloth damp, and I just want to lay this out, but in a way where I'm making sure that it's going into place the way I want. Like that. Got my iron set on medium. Let's give it a try. See how this works. We're getting some sizzles here. It's steaming. Let's see. Ooh. That looks good and flat. That seems to be doing the trick. All right. Okay, so it's still pretty steamy though. So like I picked it up and I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have picked it up yet. So I'm gonna run the iron over it one more time and let it set before I move to the next section. So we're gonna do this one more time because I moved it and it changed its shape a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to peel that back. Okay, and I'm just going to let this set for a minute. So this seems like it's working. I'm going to keep working my way down the scarf in the same way. Once this cools down and sets in place, I'm going to slide it down, move to the next section, and do the same thing until it's done. I'm feeling pretty hopeful. This seems to be a good technique that's working for me. am pretty impressed how this turned out with the iron blocking. So you could see like my edges, they look pretty good, and I was able to reposition them if they weren't quite right. And this is the right side, this is the quote unquote wrong side, the back side. And I think it looks pretty good. And you could see how it's like, it's not curled anymore, right? It's laying flat, even when I pick it up. So that was the whole point of what we just did. So now it lays flat, and it's done. It's done. So it is always good to have another tool in the toolbox, so to say. So even though I have done blocking before in a different way, this is another method, and I think it worked great. I think this worked fantastically. You just have to remember, keep that iron on like a lower medium setting, because you don't need high heat. You don't want to melt your yarn, especially if it's acrylic yarn. And this worked fantastically. Now I don't have to wait days to block and wait for it to dry. I love it. I love it. It sped up the process immensely. And I'm probably going to use this method again. I may even use this more often than regular blocking. The only thing is, like, I don't have a way of pinning down the project to keep it in the shape I want. So I had to do a little bit of manual readjusting and checking. But for a small project like this, that was fine. So if I were to do a bigger project or a more intricate project with like sharper edges that really needed to be precise and clean, then I would see about a blocking board that I could do this on. But for me, for this purpose right now, this worked fine. So I guess with that, I am done for the day. I'll see you all real soon. And until then, stay inspired. Bye, everyone. Take care.